Hello and welcome, fair intrepid viewer, to yet another exciting episode of Otaku's Journey. I am your host, as always, the Archivist, and today I will be talking about Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland.
The delightful weekly comic strip by Winsor McKay. No? That's not what we're talking about? It's not what you're talking about. Alright, I'm gonna mind my own business over here.
Okay, just hold on, we'll get there. It is one of my childhood favorites. It was an epic adventure of... Oh, wait a minute, I'm doing this in the wrong voice. It's an epic adventure through time and space, full of ups, downs, rock'em sock'em action, starring Little Nemo as he journeys to Slumberland. A place full...
Sea.
Not yet. You knock first. Remember, you're an audience crusader. Just get that part and then you'll be fine. You're looking for an audience. That you don't care about that right now. Just something for her to do so he doesn't bother us this whole thing.
Here, let Greg get this part out. He's got to produce all, so what he's doing right now, recording, is actually kind of like digging up clay.
And then he's going to put it in the...
And editing it is when he makes it into a sculpture. So right now he has to sculpt as much as he can.
Then after you knock, then close the door then. So then I don't have to keep editing you out like this part. It is a place full of whimsy. Princess...
There's only one princess.
Only one princess.
And it's me.
That's right. It's an epic adventure. From dream to nightmare to responsibility. That's right. A kid has a dream about responsibility. The end.
A world full of nightmares, where dreams can come true, and what it takes to be a prince. Where squirrels wear aviation glasses. Where squirrels wear aviation goggles.
Those are the real squirrels, by the way, for some reason. In the dream world, they don't have squirrels.
Where one little boy can become a prince. Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland. That was my trailer voice. I love doing that. Yeah, kind of changed pitch there. I sound like a totally different person. But, that's ventriloquism for you. Anyway, so, this movie's awesome. It's epic. It's starring Nemo, this little kid who's constantly in his pajamas throughout most of the film. Well, the entire film, pretty much, he's in his pajamas. And he has a sidekick squirrel named, what was his name again? Pip? Squeak?
What's his name?
What? Who's?
There's the squirrel in Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland. What's his name? It's just like a person's name, isn't it?
Not a squirrel.
It's not Pike.
Mike?
It's not Mike. Yeah, I was thinking that. It's not Mike.
Icarus.
There you go.
Icarus. And,
say it again. Say the whole line again. Or it's gonna edit gross.
And by his side is his pet squirrel, Icarus, who strangely seems to wear aviation goggles in and out of the dreams, so that doesn't really make much sense. But anyway, it's a children's film. Since when does that really make too much sense? Anyway, so the basic story, this awesome story, is that Nemo has these really epic dreams. Like the opening sequence, for example. Blah, 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 opening sequence. Wasn't that just awesome? Now, Little Nemo wants to go to the circus one day. They have this big parade where they come down the street and all that, introducing all the different carnies. So Nemo gets so hyped he runs home to want to have his dad take him to the circus, but his dad says he's busy.
So not the who, when, why, where, but like.
All right.
Did you guys start? Oh,
We're just about to.
Okay. Well, it's a children's movie, but it's incredibly well animated. It's about dreams and responsibility as an undercurrent, a running gag about eating pies and falling out of bed. It's whimsy. It has. This was one of the pinnacle, the movies that stay with you, childhood movies. It was something I could relate to. It had dreams. It talked more or less on my level. I can understand it. I could sympathize with the character, get the themes, even as a child, still get the themes. And it was a roller coaster ride of just... So the movie is a 1989 production, which makes it an 80s movie still, which totally resonates with me because I think the 80s are awesome, being an 80s child myself. The place in the universe the movie took was rather minor. It's not a classic. Not everyone's going to be remembering it. People will probably remember more of the comic strip or the book medium than the actual movie. So it's not incredibly well known. But with me, it's one of the more signature childhood, fond memory childhood movies. It was truly a movie for the ages.
Wait. I'm sorry. I know I was supposed to be quiet, but wait a minute.
Yes?
Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland was not a movie for the ages. It is fondly remembered by a narrow niche of late 80s, early 90s children, and it has no legs beyond that.
Really, Mr. What's your name?
Call me Grimm's Fedora.
Okay, Mr. Fedora.
Right, that's right, I'm a hat.
Uh-huh. How'd you get in here anyway?
Fifth wall.
The fifth wall. Boy, that fourth wall problem must have been worse than I thought. Someone gets in here through the fifth wall.
That's a problem. Should have it looked at. It was easy to get in, but I'm afraid one of us is going to fall out.
It's okay. It's being handled by top men.
Top men?
Top men.
So, all right, let me interject something here. Little Nemo, personally, I don't think people remember it for the story or the characters.
Really?
No, I don't, because the story doesn't happen until over halfway through the film.
Well, that's more of the climax point. Everything's built up until then, and then.
No. Nothing builds up. Archivist. Nothing builds up. What occurs in the beginning of this film, the very beginning, is a really cool dream sequence.
Yes.
Because it feels like a dream. There's a sense of adventure, and it does set up one element of the movie, and that is that in the beginning of the movie, everything is lovely, and in the end of the movie, everything is terrifying. But the other thing it establishes is the primary problem of the movie, which is that things just happen, and there's no reason to care about any of it. By the end of the dream, Nemo falls out of bed, just like in the old Winsor McKay comics. But we learn nothing about Nemo.
Other than liking pies.
Yeah, he sneaks pies at night, and that gives him dreams. And he's an average white, late 1800s, early teens, early 19s, American boy.
Who wears pajamas constantly throughout the film.
Yeah, but in real life, he just presumably wears them to bed, and then is still in them in his dreams. He clashes with his mother over stealing pies. He wants his father to take him to the circus. And then he goes to bed, and is summoned to a magical kingdom for a reason that we don't hear.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you with that part, yes.
He goes to Slumberland. We are briefly introduced to the concept that nightmare is an issue. That nightmare exists and the people of Slumberland are afraid of whatever that is. He's supposed to meet the king in Slumberland. He arrives. Everyone's happy he's there. They know his name.
Yeah, it's strange how that happened.
And the king who summoned him is nowhere to be found. So, there's a bit of a romp through the palace with a no-goodnik clown named Flip. We know he's no goodnik because they tell Nemo he's a no-goodnik.
Actually, they refer to him as a frightful fellow.
A frightful fellow. And actually, that part was kind of funny. Hey, you're Flip. You're a frightful fellow. There's touches like that I like quite a bit. Here, let me jump ahead real quick. I don't really want to spell out the entire story. The main point is that this movie's about an hour and a half long, and at about 45 minutes into it, is when the king reveals why Nemo is there, that they're afraid of the bad guy, the Nightmare King, and that there's a scepter that only the king and Nemo can use to defeat the Nightmare.
Yes, but strangely enough, it's just Nemo. I agree with you at this point. It was Nemo that was just summoned to Slumberland for, to take to inherit the responsibilities of the king. But we never actually say why he was, like, what the qualities the king saw in Nemo that brought him to the castle.
Well, right. Presumably it's just because he can use the scepter, but we don't know. Like, they didn't even say midi-chlorians, which was already a bad.
It was the enchantment, the spell or whatever, the words for the scepter to work. If you know the words.
But he didn't know the words. Someone had to write it down and show it to him later. The point is that not anyone can use it for some reason. It can only be wielded by these people. Not necessarily worthy. It's not like you're a descendant of a bloodline. I'm okay with arbitrary reasons in fantasy. It's just that the problem with arbitrary reasons in fantasy is they're not nuanced. They can't give us something to be afraid of and something to hope for, and they can't provide us with tricks and ways that the story can change. So if it's arbitrary, it's simplistic, it's dull. And basically immediately after that, everyone dances and is taken over by Nightmare. Now, yes, this is because of something that Nemo did while hanging out with Flip, which apparently he shouldn't have. And yes, there is absolutely a theme of keeping promises. But I don't feel the theme is explored. I think it's pretty much, hey, keep your promise. I'm not going to keep my promise. Bad things will happen. Oh, man! Is the extent of it. And that all happens right there in the middle.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
And the point is, we sat through half of a movie without knowing what it was about or why anyone was there, and without anybody wondering why anybody was there. Nemo's not in a quest to find out why he's there. He doesn't even have a chance to ask anybody straight out, or stop and wonder, or worry about why he's there. The only thing he's afraid of is talking to a girl, and even that's dealt with handily, and we don't have to worry about it ever again. Effectively, there's no middle to the movie. There's this extended introduction where nothing really happens, and then there's a setup, and then there's a climax, and then it's over.
Well, yes. That extended introduction, yes, I will admit that it does feel like it does feel like it was trying to do world building and character introduction, but it does go on a bit long. I understand that, but it's very colorful and exciting. But once you break it down, it is a very drawn out introduction.
I would argue that it's the opposite of exciting. I would argue that without suspense, without some reason to care about what happens next, without something propelling you through the story, without questions, excitement's impossible. Except for generally in stories, the inciting incident, the moment where things go crazy. Like one exception I can think of, Spielberg plays it a little bit differently. He still draws you along the whole way, but he lets you take a moment to experience wonder, not always right at the beginning. It's towards the beginning, but it took a while for the dinosaurs to be revealed to the paleontologists in Jurassic Park. There's repeated revelation and wonderment in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This is all dealt with a non-standard way that is still effective.
Indiana Jones. Was a good 5-10 minutes before he steps out of the shadows. When his introduction is badass. It's like this guy.
I think this is a totally separate discussion, but in the case of Little Nemo, you spend an awful lot of time in Slumberland where nothing of consequence occurs and where nothing even attempts to answer any of the questions that are on your mind.
Until the midpoint.
Until the midpoint, but granted, this is 45 minutes after we've learned that there's a king of dreams and that this boy can be transported to another world.
But at what age did you first see?
I probably first saw it. I saw it on video. I don't remember if it had a theatrical release. I think it did. So I probably saw it when I was 10.
And did those first 45 minutes manage to hold your attention well?
Not so.
As a child's mind.
Okay, well, so when you say child's mind, it's a little different, probably from what my experience was at 10. The story did not hold my interest at any point. I didn't really care what was going to happen next. I didn't really end up caring about what the characters cared about. I might have liked their presence, but I didn't care if any of them got what they wanted. None of that was relevant to me because I was never really introduced to it in time. That said, and there's a negative tone to everything I'm saying, but that said, there's another way in which I enjoyed the film. I don't think it works as a story. Something that you haven't mentioned is the fact that it was one of those movies that was written and produced in the U.S., but was artistically built almost entirely in Japan by Japanese animators.
And that's why it looks so good. It's one of its best qualities is the animation.
It is. It's also it's this wonderful Western Eastern hybrid. Like, one thing you'll notice when you watch anime is that the faces are just terrible. They're the most simplified way to express emotion. There's nothing subtle, nothing nuanced. But the backgrounds and the things they hold on to and the motion is gorgeous and painstakingly mechanical.
Is the quality, I believe, a good reference of quality would be the Hobbit movie, you think? Would be on par with that? Or
Yeah, I'll get to that in a moment. Let's contrast it with Western animation, where the face is super important. Expression is complex, and there's a lot of motion, but the backgrounds don't have to be, especially on TV cartoons. Like, backgrounds, who cares? And yes, there's a simplified face on Nemo and his friends, but the expressions and the way the faces move is actually pretty sophisticated. And the way the bed moves in the beginning, the way the train moves in the beginning, especially in that beginning short film of an intro.
By the way,
yeah.
My first introduction to the intro, which I had a problem with forever. I had the most darndest problems with intros when I was young, but the intro to Little Nemo, I had the VHS tape version. I believe I saw it on VHS tape first, and they did a strange edit as opposed to the DVD release I saw way later as an adult. Yeah. Is that they totally the entire song of Little Nemo that this lady sings, pretty much. It was basically the introduction of the character of he dreams of this and that, and all that, of this adventurous dream song. Is pretty much just like 5 minutes of song with title cards. That's it, and colored background, soft hues, and this and that. I never saw that, so that entire scene was cut out. But that whole song was then placed over the actual dream itself. So the point where he says "up into the clouds we go," all I heard was "aha hee hee ha," and I kept rewinding and thinking, "What the hell is "aha hee hee ha"?" And I thought that's a bizarre choice that they had the music play up over the audio in such a good movie. They did everything else so well that they made this such a glaring mistake. Granted, it's a tiny little thing, but it's such a small but glaring blemish. Until I finally saw the DVD and realized, they just put that song over the dream sequence.
So you're right, and I remember being frustrated by that. For whatever reason, the first time I saw it, that's not how it was. First time I saw it was more like the DVD, so maybe I did see it in theaters. Anyway, but that, it was not... I'm trying to remember who distributed it and who produced it. I don't remember. But the point is that it wasn't a huge animation production machine like Disney.
TMS or something. MTS?
Okay, right.
It was Tokyo Metro... something Studios.
So the point is that in the edit for distribution, if they had to make a change, it was going to be blunt, right? It wasn't going to be a delicate, well-built change. Anyway, so this movie looks really good in parts. In many parts, the visuals are fascinating, and that worked for me as a kid. Stories fascinated me on one level, but another level was images that I could use to build other images and ideas off of, and so Little Nemo was great for that. And so my memories of it are fond, but I don't remember it as a compelling story like I do other bits of animation. And I don't buy it as an epic. It covers a lot of places, but again, we don't get this rise and fall of purpose.
It has purpose. It has plenty of it has... This kid goes on an adventure. Granted, okay, the beginning is rather a bit drawn out. We never actually explain why he's there. What qualities does the king see in this kid?
The kid goes for a visit.
Yeah, he goes for a visit, and he says he's going to inherit the Fantasia pretty much. He's going to be god of this, the ruler of this epic thing. And he has no problem with this. He's like, okay,
Right.
I'll do this.
But that's right. He has no problem with it.
Yeah, he has no problem with it.
But that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
okay, the extent of it.
But then,
Far from epic.
But what the undercurrent then catches up to him is that about the promise. He understands, okay, promises should be kept. He makes promise, then he breaks promise, and now the consequences are catching up to him, which is the release of the Nightmare King.
And the consequences are dramatic.
Yes, and and then that's when the story really begins. Is that, okay, I screwed up. I have to fix this now. So that's when he takes on the hero's journey pretty much at that point, where he goes on this quest to save the day.
But if the story kicks in, the story really begins, to use your words, at the 45-minute mark of an hour-and-a-half long film. It's a short film, not an epic. It's a short film with this really long title sequence before it.
Pretty much, yeah. Made even longer with the DVD.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, this is probably the original.
Yeah.
The DVD. It's also one of those things, not uncommon with animated films that we would have seen as kids, where they hadn't really figured out the voice acting. Like, there were good voice actors in here, but the voice recording, when at the climax, when Nemo is chanting this ridiculously long activation
Samba pajama.
His voice, I mean, he's clearly acting like it's intense, but it doesn't sound like an actual kid in actual duress, and the music is louder than he is, and the sound effects are louder than he is. And it has that weird effect, that thing that just made the middle of the day kind of creepy for young kids watching their cartoons as their parents napped after lunch.
I found it intense. I thought it was the perfect climax for a children's film. It had a moral, it had adventure, it had the child facing the king of all nightmares.
You're saying the climax had a moral?
Yes. The overall story had a moral.
Right. So what was the value of the climax?
That we finally got the reveal of the Nightmare King. How big and epic in scope it was, and how like sinister and scary it looked and sounded. And what did Nemo do? He wasn't really afraid of it. He was more concerned about saving his friends and defeating the Nightmare King. He was facing the king of all nightmares. He was saving the day.
But is that surprising from the kid who, when told he was going to be the king of Dreamland, said, "All right, it sounds all right"? I mean, he just didn't react to anything in this movie. He had no emotional investment, which is why we didn't have emotional investment in the ongoings of the story. Now, again, the instances within it, all well and good, but that's why I say it's less of a movie and more of a museum, or maybe an amusement park ride. Also, a climax.
I could see that.
The climax wasn't, will he keep his promise? It wasn't like Lord of the Rings. Will he do what he set out to do? And the climax wasn't about dream logic. Most of the movie wasn't, just the intro was. And that bothers me, but I understand. And it was about defeating the evil Nightmare King. I would say it was about taking his princely responsibilities, aside from the fact that nothing he was told was involved in being a prince did he have to actually do.
The fencing, the dancing.
Right, nothing that he had. He never had to learn a lesson that had to do with how the movie was resolved.
Right.
Which again means the climax isn't about that movie. It's just this thing that happened at the end of this film we saw.
But isn't that mostly what dreams are? It's just the stuff happens.
But dream logic is different from just stuff. Like, if you take a person and put them in a room and say, write just a bunch of stuff that happens, it's surreal, but it's not like a dream. Because dreams connect through curious, emotional, conceptual, visual patterns. And we all know it, right? It's hard to express, but we can all feel this is like a dream. Like, we all know that most dream sequences don't do a good enough job. And we also recognize the ones that do. The first Nightmare on Elm Street reminds you of dreams you've had. The dream sequence in The Exorcist might be my favorite dream sequence of all time, even though it uses sleeping noises to remind us to dream, and when you dream you don't think about that. It was still just like every stress dream you've ever had about a family member right there. But yeah, so there's really no Adventures in Slumberland. Like, I can't help but look at it as anything but a failure. That said, I owned it for a while. I bought it on purpose, feeling that way.
So you must have liked it on some level.
No, it was mostly the visual level. And it was also, I'm very fond of the old comics. Also, not story strong, by the way. Winsor McKay, not a writer. I think that's it. It even has a heritage of not really being very plot driven. Of course, that said, Ray Bradbury converted the comics to the story that they used for this movie. Now, becoming a screenplay can make things very, very different. And go through many different versions. Themes can be lost and built.
I heard from the Nostalgia Critic, which I support, by the way, said that even Hayao Miyazaki at one point had was brought on board for this endeavor, and he said it was the worst experience of his life.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some names attached to this. Chris Columbus was involved. I mean, I'm not a huge Chris Columbus fan, but he directed the first two Harry Potter movies, and frickin' Mobius did the character design. So Winsor McKay, original designs, Mobius updated them, and then they got Japanified. Like, no wonder it looks so awesome. But there's some surprisingly outdated cartoon voice stylings in this, for the time even. Just kind of annoying TV cartoon voices.
Oh, the princess?
Like, the princess whose accent kept going away.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And the raven, Flap. Flip's raven, Flap. It was horrible listening to that bird. It would be like if someone was using Megatron's cartoon voice in a cartoon now. We would all say, no! I don't want to listen to that anymore. Anyway. It's like nothing happened till... There was no middle of this movie. There's no beginning of this movie. What happened?
Crocodiles. Alright, but that's the thing, is that even though the story, when it drags at that 45-minute mark, until the 45-minute mark, it is still visually stunning and holds your attention.
I would say, except for... I mean, like... And there's even cool designs in that stupid teacher singing scene. But it's just not... It doesn't have the grandiose cool factor. It doesn't have that combination of toy and circus that everything else has. But I liked the creatures. I loved that. When I was a kid, I liked the creepy stuff. I really liked the manta ray, flying manta ray creature.
That's very dream. It seemed very dream. Nightmare on Elm Street like. It's just like this big hovering thing. It's like whoa,
right.
Like ooh, we're getting kind of more into the epic side of dreaming again.
And it followed a lot of the cartoon logic of the time, actually, kind of a Transformers logic. Like, there's this big, horrible, evil thing, and he's sent these goons out to get someone, but he really trusts his weird winged creature. It's totally Laserbeak. But yeah, why was there a flying squirrel in this movie? Why was there a cute animal from the real world?
Well, you said it was in Japan. Maybe it's a Japanese influence. They always have tons of mascots in.
But Disney movies tend to have cute animals too. That's where the whole idea got popular.
True.
And I think animators just tend to. That's a kind of character they generally have, and they might have felt like it was a necessary selling point. But it's funny because it's a flying squirrel. Icarus isn't bad. He's not a bad character. It's just not necessary. Icarus might have a more interesting story arc than anyone else in the movie. Now that I think about it, Icarus is along for the ride just because his friend is, and Icarus is a flying squirrel who lives in New York City, where they don't have flying squirrels, and
wears aviation goggles.
Yeah, like Rocky, and he effectively lives in the world of this human boy, sleeps in his bed and everything, except for in the very beginning when he sleeps in a tree. I'm not sure what that was all about either. But, so this squirrel's already along for the ride. Loyalty is defining its universe, and it's in its human master's dream. Weird, goes along, but it's the one that has to learn to let go, has to learn to face things, has to learn that he has to allow Nemo to risk himself. And in the end, effectively sacrifices himself to allow Nemo to fire the beam. Now, in the end, everyone is okay, except for Nemo, who has to be healed by the king. I don't know. It's like they were trying to remind us of all the cartoons we liked, rather than making a cartoon we would like. I would say Icarus has the most complete arc in this story. I would have said Flip, but he doesn't reach an end.
True.
He learns nothing. He teaches nothing. He makes something happen. He gets slapped on the wrist for it. He doesn't learn his lesson. He gets slapped on the wrist several other times. The end.
That's it. You're not going to say why. Come on, man. That was like one of the major high points of the movie, was that was that we find out that okay, let's go into Flip's story arc here. He's introduced as the comical whimsy guy that obviously is going to start trouble.
Yeah, almost fundamentally a troublemaker. Like he's kind of a snake oil salesman,
Yeah.
but he doesn't sell anything. He's just trying. I mean, he's an adult, but he's in a kid's dream, so he acts like just the kid down the street that makes you do bad things. In the comics, he was an Irish stereotype. And he has nothing to gain from any of this. But he acts like a sleazy salesman. Just to cause trouble. Probably because he's bored. And doesn't like following rules. And because he lives in a dream.
And when he gets Nemo to open the door and thus start the movie, to start things in motion here, so something actually happens, he gets in trouble with Nemo. Nemo pretty much leaves, and then comes back through the dream logic, because he gets overwhelmed or whatever, and then wakes up, and then goes back to face up to his responsibility. And so Flip is the only one around to get punished. He's about to be launched into space with a cannon somehow. He's going to achieve... Somehow he's going to be fired out of a cannon and achieve escape velocity. I don't know how that's really going to help.
And that by itself is pretty awesome. It's just, again, plot-wise, ultimately meaningless. But it's cool that they were going to shoot him into space.
And with his line, he says, "Blindfold, please, I want to watch the fun."
Yeah.
From inside the cannonball. Anyway, so Nemo shows up just in the nick of time to stop him from sending him into space. And he says, "We need Flip. He has a map of Nightmare Land. It's only in a writing he can understand." All right, fine. So he gets not hired, but drafted into leading this expedition. And Flip saying, "Okay, now you need me. I'm in a position of power. I'm important." So then he gets cocky and says, "You want to come too, little princessy? You can carry my cigars." And he kind of pats her on the cheek and whatever, demeaning her.
Yeah.
That he's more important than she is on this trip. And what does she do? She just decks him right in the face. And he says, "Of course I'm coming. And by royal decree, I sentence you to no cigar smoking."
Yeah, the reason she says no cigar smoking is he says that she can carry his cigars. So to establish a few things we haven't yet established, Flip is just trying to get Nemo, who's famous in Slumberland for some reason, to be his buddy so they can just get into trouble together. That's really all he wants. And Nemo is given a key that'll open just plain anything in Slumberland. But it has the emblem, this dragon emblem, which is the emblem on the door to Nightmare. And he's not allowed to open that door, okay?
Which he's promised to. Not to open.
He promised not to do it. He doesn't know what it is. Okay, so this is Adam and Eve, right? This is don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
But that was on purpose, narratively on purpose, because his curiosity gets the better of him, and that's what pushes him further to open the door.
Yeah, he's egged on, and then he's like, now I gotta see what's in there. He opens the door. They see it's scary. They leave without locking the door. So Flip is a walking plot device. He's got a map to Nightmare, so they need to take him along, although once he gets there, he proves to not be valuable in the least. To the plot or to the adventure. He's just another prisoner for the Nightmare King to capture. In fact, they meet a whole new cast of goofy animal creatures, these goblins that are nice, that are jesters, they're not scary, they're too funny to be scary, and they glom together and make tree shapes, and they have a song, and one of them has been captured by the Nightmare King. But they also, while they add some dynamic to the things that happen, they don't add any dynamic to anything that matters. In fact, they prove to be a plot device as the one they were trying to save comes back with a message from King Morpheus that is the magic words to fire the deadly nightmare-killing scepter. Incidentally, the scepter follows Nemo around. Nemo does nothing ever to make something happen in this movie except for open that door and then to blast the Nightmare King. Everything else he just does because someone told him to, or because he was magically made to, compelled to, by the weird falling asleep and waking up dynamic in this movie that actually wasn't weird enough to be cool, or plot-driven enough to be cool.
But the scepter still follows him, which I see where you're going with this, is that it's his responsibility. Now it falls to him to basically save the day.
Yeah, no, I agree, but But what he does to save the day is say a password.
Yes.
And yes, it's a long password, and he needs help to read it because he's going to be inhaled by the King of Nightmares. Granted. But Nemo doesn't have to make many decisions in the course of this film. He makes 2.
Yeah. Well, it's a children's film.
No, but in most children's films, there are a lot of decisions. Like I hate to compare it to Disney films or Miyazaki films because those are standards, and Miyazaki films are also a little slow.
Well, these guys are better writers. They've had more successes.
Oh, right, but I'm talking about the most basic element of quality writing, which is just propulsive storytelling, which is in the beginning, you show us what was, then you tell us why we need to do stuff, blah, 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 take us to the climax. There's an error in a lot of thinking about children's films and children's books that kids are just idiots and don't need stories. And
talking down to.
And you're talking down to, but basically so that they can be lazy and just include scenes where people sing and see stuff happen. And yes, a child's life, you get told what's what a ton. But that's not cool. Like, that's not what you like about being a kid, is that everyone tells you what to do and you don't make decisions. That's not the part you want to experience in a movie. You want to experience making decisions and doing things on your own.
To me, it will always be a classic, and I think this thing should be more popular than it had become, or
right.
what it was.
So I guess my overall view on this thing is that, let's say, not for fans of animated films, but for animation fans, this movie is kind of a big deal. Like, not a huge deal, it's not a milestone, but it was important within its temporal context, and it's cool to look at. And that's pretty important when you're into the art of animation. I would say that in terms of plot, heroic arc, or otherwise, it's lacking. And I would say, in response to what you say, Archivist, that...
Yes, the page?
Right. That,
or, sorry, the fedora.
Yeah. Grimm's. That it's not like they never considered the themes or the arc. It's they didn't deliver. There's hints, vestiges, remnants of abandoned or unrepresented concepts. Like the central notion of keeping a promise is... It's there. It's not prominent, and it's not really what the climax or what the important parts of the movie are about. It's like it was forgotten. The nature of dream, which was so well represented in that intro, which was so cool, and then just not. The fact that he wakes up at bad times was just used so they didn't have to shoot complicated scenes or make complicated scenes. It wasn't used to make the story more interesting. And I wonder if in early drafts it was. That's my view. That's my view. Is that as a story, it ultimately just doesn't deliver.
Well, it totally delivers for me, especially the end. I love the end because you never see children love interests together, you know. They usually kind of just act more like friends and kids and stuff. Like in Jungle Book, at the end of Jungle Book, you know, the reason Mowgli goes into the man village is because he is attracted to... what's her name? Yeah, I forget what her name is. But she's so beautiful, in fact, and gives him the bedroom eyes that he follows her into the man village. Then in the beginning of the sequel, we see that Gretchen, the brother that he pretty much adopts, is that he says that, yeah, Mowgli follows you in because he finds you cute. And then the girl flutters her eyelashes at Mowgli, giving the bedroom eyes, and then that's it. Then the rest of it is just, you're my friend, not love interest anymore. It's like, no more romantic banter at any point. Even at the end, it's like she doesn't parody it again, like follow me again back into the man village. So like parody, like we're here at the river where we started, and we're doing it again. It's like there's no more reference that they're just friends for this whole thing. It's like that's it. They're just going to be just friends. There's no hint at all that they still like each other more than just friends anymore. It's just there and forgotten. It's like. Some remembrance would have been nice. You know, just a bit of a look would have been all I wanted.
So,
but wait, not done yet. So, that's why that's why I think the end of Nemo is better than the ending of Jungle Book 2, is that the two have been... Nemo and the princess have had this romantic banter relationship and all the dynamics back and forth of just young teens and liking each other, kind of like.
Yeah.
And at the end, what does she do? They kiss.
Yeah.
And the dream ends on that, and I thought that was perfect. That it ended on a good note. He wakes up, and his dad gets to take him to the circus.
I think that's also a matter of time. It's a curious angle to come from. I think it's a matter of when. I feel like earlier, again, going back to Disney stuff, earlier Disney stuff was more comfortable with 8-year-olds making out than anyone is now. I don't think that it's an issue of, kids can't kiss each other, per se. I think that people are just very afraid of sexualizing children.
Yes.
And I think that especially in selling that to little girls as what you do. Like the girl at the end of the first Jungle Book works fine for the arc of a coming of age for a boy, especially when she started with animals, and now why would he need humans? Well, to mate. But she sings a song of seduction, right? It's not...
Yes, I love that song, and it just seems so much, even as a young child watching that, it was like, that's such a haunting melody, it just draws you in.
Right, and that's great, but do you cut to these borderline tribal Indian children, like getting married at 12 and having too many children? I mean, that's not what I don't consider the sequel canon, by the way. That's just cash-in crap. But like that's going to be a story about friendship because they're trying to sell
friendship.
They're trying to sell friendship. That's what we want the kids to learn, and that's what the parents want them to see. I think that stories about kids actually falling in love is really something more that adults watch.
Yeah.
Like Moonrise Kingdom or something like that, or all those French films from the '60s.
Final thoughts. My final thoughts is, I have very much of a child's mind. I still view it a lot of what I thought of it when I first saw it as a child. It has more depth to it. It has a bit more flaws because I see it more as an adult, as more of its mechanics and story story as what's that word? Story dynamic, whatever. You can see the flaws better because you see how story structure is.
Right.
Proper story structure, so you see its flaws more.
So yeah, it was so spectacular on one or two counts, and on other counts just isn't even a movie.
So you say 1 or 2 counts. So out of 10, you say 1 or 2 counts. I say it's more of an 8 or 7 from our respective positions.
Yeah. I would probably argue that even though I held this same view when I was a kid,
Now, who can that be? He asked as if he cared.